These are the 7 deadly sins that will consume your soul. Sons of Sins is a mod that adds several incredible bosses, new armor, weapons, and even the ability to create your own unique monster. Well, let's start with the Plains, where at night you can find the betrayed Guzzler. This strange creature with a huge mouth carries a scythe on his back, which we need for further exploration of the mod. Defeating the betrayed Guzzler is quite easy. Basically, it's like a zombie, but with more health. The only thing is, it's better to attack him from afar, because he can take your weapon away. After he dies, the mob drops Flesh of Demise and a new weapon, the Cycle of Struggle. When eaten, the flesh gives a blood sand effect. You cannot cook this piece of meat, but you can use it in 2 crafting recipes. First, from all types of meat, which I will also show later, you can create unique decorative blocks. Second, from red meat you can craft a flesh carcass. In the future we will bring it to life, but for this dark creature we need to collect blood. To farm blood, you need to craft glass bottles and hold them in your off hand while killing mobs. By the way, in addition to blood bottles, mobs drop a random type of red meat, and some of them drop unique organs. After killing a creeper, ribs drop, which give the last breath effect. This effect will literally make you explode if for some reason you die. From a slime rear drops. It gives you poisoning and a strange tendons effect, which allows you to move around the world just like a slime does. From an enderman you can get the enderman muscle, which applies the instinct effect that teleports you when you take damage. When a Ravager dies, it also drops his muscle, which when eaten gives you a slowing effect and Hercules Fury, increasing the damage you deal. A Spider Heart, as expected, drops from Spider and gives a Seed Bloodstream effect, which deals extra poison damage when you attack. Strider Muscle allows you stay unharmed in lava and fire, but will damage you in water because of the Hydrophobia effect. Also in the Nether, you can kill a Blaze, which drops a Blazing Heart that gives a blazing effect. It lets to deal additional fire damage when attacking. By the way, bowling works with balls and weapons from other mods as well. Additionally, sometimes steam will burst out of you, igniting everyone around. The Ice Heart can be obtained from a snow golem and gives the Arctic Cells effect. This ability grants speed, but makes you slide as if you were on ice. Finally, from an Iron Golem, Blood Sand drops. This item cannot be eaten, but it gives resistance to and immunity to fall damage. Players cannot get these buffs, as the item cannot be eaten, but it can be fed to the monster we create. The Flesh Carcass has its own interface, where you need to insert red meat, 2 muscles and a heart in the middle. The abilities your created monster will depend on the items placed in this interface. To the right, you also need to place a jar of blood and Ether Ashes. To obtain Ether Ashes, you need to craft Oju's tools. They made from bones and strings. Oju's tools are slightly weaker than stone tools, but by killing, for example, a creeper with an ocean sword, you can get Ether. The amount of Ether you get when killing a mob depends directly on its health. For example, when a chicken dies, it drops 1 Ether Ash, while an Iron Golem drops 10. By placing Ether Ashes in a Flesh Carcass interface, it can be brought to life. But first, the carcass must be thrown in a pool of blood. A bucket of blood is crafted from 4 blood bottles, a bucket and Ether Ashes. Well, finally we have a bucket of blood, and it can be poured. For example, right here. By the way, you can bath in the blood to restore health, but not for too long, because after a while you'll start taking damage. Oops. The carcass can finally be thrown into the blood pool, so that under the influence of dark forces it comes to life. Oh, this is a kind of monster we have created. His name seems to be Galber, and it is the most standard of all the pranksters you can make. In addition to the abilities of your pet, you can completely change its body. To do this, you need to look at the type of blood you use when assembling the monster. Primary blood is obtained using a hook from all standard mobs. Using this blood, you will get a small monster called Galber. Human-like blood is firmer from villagers and zombies. With this blood, you can create a Guzzler. It is quite smart and can even use weapons that you give to him. Winged blood is obtained from phantoms, chickens and vexes. With this type of blood, you can create a flying monster called a Devourer. Aquatic blood is next. Well, it's not hard to guess that it's obtained from water underwater mobs. Using this blood, you can summon a Nibbler. It is quite small, can swim, and is very useful for clearing underwater dungeons. And finally, there is white blood, which flows in the veins of large creatures like Hoglins and Ravagers. From white blood, you can create a grub. Not only will this monster protect you in battle, but you can also ride it like a mount. Well, with such a new friend, defeating the bosses in this mod won't be too hard. Actually, that's not true. By collecting Ether Ashes and combining them with iron, you can craft an item called Iron and Ether. After smelting it in a furnace, you'll get Soul Steel. Using this material, you can craft the Cycle of Struggle, a Soul Steel block, which does not explode like obsidian, but can be moved by pistons, and Remnant Armor, which is absolutely necessary to defeat the new bosses. Almost all of the new bosses kill you in one hit, even if you're wearing full netherite armor, but the Remnant Armor has some kind of magic that lets you partially avoid damage from the Sounds of Sins. Other than that, it's pretty much like Diamond Armor. To craft Remnant Armor and 2 new tools, you'll also need Crystallized Ether. This is created by throwing regular ether into blood. You can also throw Oshi's tools into blood to turn them into flash versions. These are very little durability, but they are more effective than Oshi's tools and can repair themselves by using your hunger. Using Crystallized Ether, you can craft the Ether Sword, but before Ether tools work, you need to create an urn. The urn has 9 slots, where you can place 9 stacks of Ether. The Ether Sword allows you to heal yourself during attacks by using Ether from the urn. By the way, if the Ether in the urn runs out, you'll start taking damage during attacks. Also, the armor will stop working. The second item is also crafted using Crystallized Ether. This is the shape-shifting tool, which can change its form, turning into a pickaxe, a shovel, or an axe by consuming Ether. If the rune runs out of resources, the tool won't be able to change form and will deal damage to you mind blocks. Finally, let's move on to the bosses we've been preparing for so long. There are a total of 7 bosses, each representing one of the 7 deadly sins. To summon each of them, you need to capture villagers and pour a bucket of blood under them. The number of villagers directly determines which boss you summon, or you can stay in a pool of blood yourself and die, which might accidentally summon one of the monsters. Let's start with the simplest boss. Sloth is represented by the walking bed. The boss literally looks like a bed, and a small doll sits on its shoulder. To summon it, there must be 5 villagers standing in a pool of blood at the same time. The special thing about Sloth is that he doesn't move as long as you're looking at him, so defeating this first boss won't be too difficult. Just carefully walk up and start hitting. The main thing is to avoid moving the camera by accident, or it will be the end for me. The walking bed was too lazy to fight back. Well, because it literally represents laziness. Yes. After his death, the walking bed drops a bloody bone and a puppet of strife. This puppet has an interface, where we can place a piece of meat to get a small positive effect. The second boss is a Prowler. He cannot stand up, but he can crawl very quickly. Defeating the Prowler with new weapons and armor will not be hard, as he has very little HP. After his death, the boss drops a bloody bone and Hand of Riot. This item deals 7 damage, and when you hit an enemy with it, all aggressive creatures in Orby will start attacking that enemy. You can even use this on bosses, if you have enough bloody bones. You can also craft Sinful Tools and a new sword. All Sinful Tools have a special feature. They are completely unbreakable, cause they don't have durability, and the weapons deal extra damage to mobs from this mod. Fighting the sins without these tools may become impossible, especially in hardcore mod. The third boss is the Butcher, whose head has been split into 2 parts, and his left hand has been replaced with a huge cleaver. The Butcher represents anger in the mod, so he is extremely aggressive and will kill everything alive in his path in a fit of rage, which drops after you kill the Butcher. Deals damage based on your health. The lower your health, the higher the damage. Kelvin, jealous of his friends, made himself cybernetic prosthetics, but because of them, he only became weaker and slower. After defeating Kelvin, he drops an Ether engine, which currently has no functionality. Greed or Blood is very slow and never leaves his small pool. However, he is one of the worst bosses, because he throws blood orbs that make you sink in the blocks for a short time, making the fight very annoying. It is not really hard, but it's super annoying. You sink into the blocks, dig yourself out, and then sink again. From this monster, you can get the Touch of Greed. This item allows you to shoot blood orbs, but using bottles of blood, forcing mobs to sink in the the blocks. The next boss, Curse, looks like a flying skeleton. It prefers to circle around, and when approaching the player, leave them into the air, dealing multiple hits. The worst part is that during this moment, the boss can remove your armor, making the battle quite difficult. After the boss dies, he drops a cursed head. When you hit with this item, it can remove armor. However, it is single use. I don't have anyone to test this on, so you'll just have to trust me on this. Finally, there is Wistdiver or Gluttony. This is an extremely tough and unpleasant boss, as he has massive damage and health. Moreover, with every kill he makes, he increases his strength and power. After defeating this boss, you'll receive Wistdiver's Jaws. When you hit with this weapon, it increases its damage until your enemy is completely dead. Against regular mobs, but it makes killing bosses much easier.